Hello. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another yet session of Mentor Panel at VWC and WEDO. And I'm sure this mentor panel is going to bring some fireside chats that all of us are really going to get real insights about. So, to tell you a little bit about VWC and WEDO, VWC is the Visionary Women's Circle and founded by a very visionary woman called Kadambari Umapati herself. She has been instrumental in launching this platform. The platform is not only a circle of women, but a platform which is actually empowering women to come across from different fields, exchange their insights, learnings, and forge meaningful conversation and connections to move ahead not only in the Indian scenario but also on global platforms. And BWC is a committed to fostering success across, especially for women entrepreneurs from diverse backgrounds. So today we have, one of our key strategies for Visionary Women's Circle has been a mentorship panel. And when we say mentorship panel, it means we could learn and gain insights from people who've been there, done that for a couple of years, and can give us real, meaningful observations that probably will give us the way ahead in our own businesses. And of course, we have questions on our side in the form of chat room, so we can always pose in the questions that we really want to ask to these mentors. And today's uh, session is all about crisis management and resilience. We all know in this VUCA world, which crisis management becomes a very important function. It's not only a role; it's become a function ahead in corporates these days, and especially when it comes to entrepreneurship. We all need to be resilient. We all need to understand what is crisis management, and that's the reason we have got three luminaries from the field. We have Miss Runam Mehta, who has been a exceptional visionary and in shaping organizational strategies, proficient with P&L management, and has been instrumental in increasing growth and profitabilities of healthcare industries by not only 1, 2, but 15x times. And she inculcates positive work culture and wellness initiatives at her workplace and has been instrumental in providing insights and leadership guidances to our clients across. That's we have Ruman, and then we have on board with us Mr. Anand, who comes from a who has started his journey right from a management trainee and has moved up the ranks to being a CEO, spanning 4 decades of experience, and now is a mentor, mindset catalyst, speaker, author, thought leadership for communities, and a community founder at the Growth Mindset Collective. He's also founded the Anil Nair Leadership Foundation and has been instrumental in getting across the right kind of insights and mentoring to people who need them the most. We have Mr. Abdul Hanan, who comes with 35 plus years of experience into the FMCG sectors, having launched some of India's well-known brands across Southeast Asia and Southeast regions. He has held positions of National Operations Manager, Country Business Manager, and has been cluster business head at various levels at Philippines, at Bangladesh, and has been, now having a global organization called Virtual Advisory Board and has consultations across the globe. So I'm sure with the most esteemed expert panel that we have on board today, we've got a lot of exchange and a lot of learnings ahead. So I welcome you all to this VWC evening. And before we get on to the discussion, which is crisis management and resilience, I would first like to, pose a very basic understanding of what is resilience in crisis management. So, if we could get something from Runam to start with.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm very excited to hear my co-panelists share their views as well. And to answer your question, what does resilience mean in crisis management? The thing with crisis, unfortunately, is that even if you make plan A, B, C, D, E, and sometimes all the way to Z, exactly the one thing that you did not anticipate is sometimes going to happen. And at that time, I think the mental strength, and not at an individual level, but also at an organization level, right? The mental strength of the organization to deal with the crisis and to come back from it, to be able to continue to work despite of an unanticipated challenge that has come up at an organizational level. I think to me that is resilience, and it is demonstrated often by uh, some of the quietest people, at least in my experience, people you never expect. And under ordinary circumstances, they're like little mice, and you never hear from them. But in a crisis, you never know who's going to be your, the sailor in the stormy sea. So I think it's very, very important to kind of look to the entire team and find those resilient, often quiet people, and leverage them to get the organization back on its feet.
Great, Runam. So that's a great start, and understanding of what resilience actually means, because we use the word a lot of times, but we really don't get to the grassroots of understanding what it means when it comes to entrepreneurs or at corporate levels. So you've not only touched resilience at a personal level, but I think even at a team and a group and a corporate level. So coming, as we have a lot of women entrepreneurs in the audience today, so I would want to know what are the kind of common challenges that usually people entrepreneurs face during their journeys. So what kind of crisis, what kind of challenges do they really face? So I would like to first, because it's from more from the angle of the common challenges, probably if Anand sir could tell us, a little bit
Yeah,
about it.
I'd be thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'd be very happy answering this question for the simple reason that I have always been very passionate to promote women entrepreneurship in India, and I think I got this from my own mother, who herself was at one time very active in promoting women entrepreneurship in the country. That I'm talking way back in the 70s and the 80s. And I guess that's where the seed got sown. So the moment I stepped out of being in the corporate world and decided to, do a lot of other things apart from just vegetating as a CEO till I retire, uh, I organized 3 summits for women. One in Bangalore, one in Mysore, and one in Chennai. Chennai was a very great success. This was 2017, 2018, and I was connected with of women entrepreneurs who had a great opportunity to actually mentor and help them out. And I think, well, there are 2 or 3 areas of major concern when it comes to women entrepreneurs. One, of course, inarguably, is gender parity. I mean, it's an issue. I mean, it's an issue. I have worked very, very closely with my women entrepreneurs. I think over 150 of them. And it was such an educative experience. That is a great challenge that they face, and these are all practical experience, my very experiential understanding of what's been happening. The other is a war they have to fight within the family, and that is something that actually triggered my entire concept of growth mindset, and why I'm so deep into it now for the Gen Z and the people in their 20s. Because you know as a man, it's acceptable that you will make mistakes. As a man, it's acceptable that your job is to go out and get the money. The woman's job is to sit in the kitchen and cook, right? So 20th century or even 19th century. So for them, the first mistake could actually close their shop down. So, but the other advantages that they came up with such laser focus in their work because they knew they only had one chance. And that is where I used to enjoy my interaction with them because the chance was also with me, right, with them. The third important, and if they have to fail, everybody puts them down. Their mom, their dad, the mother-in-law, father-in-law, even worse, the husband, the children, everyone goes after them. The other aspect, which is a very natural concept, something that I discovered. The very fact that when a woman decides to step out and become an entrepreneur, she comes up with just about 15% sense of, confidence. That's a fact. Balance. Why? Because she has so many factors that is playing against her. It's not like a man could just walk out and say, no matter what happens, it's understood I will probably not make it, but it's also be damn good if I do make it. But for a woman, 15% she's very convinced. The rest is so much of pressure on her that that mindset of hers resists a lot of opportunities which otherwise can be worked on. So when they have someone with them who believes in what they do, that 15% can expand to 100%. Because within the circumference of people who know her and who would prefer that she doesn't get into this space, she doesn't have any support. But if she connects with someone or a group of people or a community which actually supports this, then it is a free for all. And they actually, if you ask me, my frank opinion, they make the best entrepreneurs because they have enormous amount of resilience. They can multitask. I've seen my wife multitasking in the kitchen. I mean, I can't do that, right? Or in her professional life. And the best part is they don't come along with, those unnecessary egos and politics and creating lobbies. They're out there to get business because they know that they're in a man's world, so to speak, and they're going to create their own space in a man's world. So I think they're perfect examples of natural resilience when it comes for entrepreneurs to create good businesses.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. And I'm sure the women entrepreneurs out there are very happily listening when sir said, women entrepreneurs are one of the best entrepreneurs. So I'm sure
Yes.
a lot of smiling
Yes.
faces I can probably anticipate and see out there.
Yes. Yes.
So, Runam, I would want to know from your perspective, being a woman, I mean, what are the kind of challenges probably you would have faced, when you started off Health Cube, and what were the different roles that you probably had to look back? Were there any question marks, or how did you traverse your journey?
Thanks for calling on me. So first, I will second what Anand was just very eloquently talking about. I think women do have to fight their battles on multiple fronts, and that's before you even step into the office. So there's a lot of battle, but I believe when you win those battles, that does lend you. I think, like you said, there is no room for error. After you fought with the entire world, you better make it work. And having a partner or a community or a mentor who kind of believes in you is a tremendous help. So I think Anand said it all absolutely bang on. But to answer the question that you've just asked me, so I've had a little bit of a, non-traditional journey. I'm actually a physiotherapist by profession, and I had to almost fight my family to even get that education. And post that, ran my own practice, blah blah blah. Eventually, when I entered into the corporate world, I realized that because I did not have a MBA, it was kind of holding me back. And then, thanks to my husband, I was able to work full time, get an executive MBA degree, from
Wow,
IMB.
awesome.
Thank you. Had a baby, continued to work throughout my maternity, went back to work. All this was possible because I had a female CEO, Meena Ganesh. I'm sure everyone's heard of her. And the day she heard I'm expecting, she called me into her room. She canceled a meeting and she said, I'm going to spend 30 minutes with you. And she sat me down and she said, what's your plan? She didn't ask me, are you coming back? She said, how are you going to come back? What's going to happen to the baby? How's your husband going to help? Is your mom going to do it? Are you going to get a caretaker? So she sat with me for 30 minutes. I'm 2 months pregnant, by the way, at this point in time. My mother doesn't know I'm expecting, but she sat me down and she said, write down a plan about how you're going to come back, because otherwise you will not. And I think I placed my entire career that happened after on that one conversation, because it just shifted, like Anand said, it shifted my mindset. Right. And it said, okay, I don't have to question whether I will come back. I have to figure out how I'm going to come back. So that was one. I think this is a challenge that a lot of women face, where we feel we have to choose. And we do not necessarily have to choose. It's a choice. Of course, it's a choice. You can choose not to come back, but it doesn't have to be a choice, right? You can say this is non-optional. My career is equally important and it's non-optional. And the minute you say it's non-optional, then you find ways to make it work. That's on the personal side. On the work side, so I'm not the founder of HealthQ. I am actually the professional CEO. The founder promoted me to professional CEO. And when I was offered the job, I'd been in the company as head of sales for only 6 months. And then the board called me one day and said, "We'd like you to take over the company." And I was 100% sure that I'm not ready for it. So I spent the next 30 minutes telling them why I am not ready for the job. And they spent those 30 minutes convincing me that I am indeed ready enough for the job. Of course, since then I've read a lot of literature which says that women only apply for jobs that they feel fully qualified for, whereas, men are more likely to take them even if they feel they're underqualified. So my board pushed me into taking this job, and more recently I read about something called a glass cliff, unique and very alien concept, which basically means that when a company is in trouble, women are generally hired to turn things around.
Yes, yes, yes,
I mean, it was in reference to the Boeing situation that's happening. And
yes,
I
yes.
mean, I laughed for about 30 minutes because that's been my entire career. Every time there's been a product or a business vertical, or a P&L that needs straightening, I've been pulled in. And I think all I have done my whole life now is crisis management.
So I think that's a very valid point.
You
Women
know, I'd like to
multitask.
add
They're
something to
into the
this.
sure, sure.
I'd like to add something to this because this is really touched my heart what you just said. I was working in an organization a couple of decades back, and we were having a crisis in terms of business generation in certain areas. And I had a great team. I had a great mix in the team, women and men. And this called for a very, very important strategy to actually pick up the best we had, send them to those locations in the country which needed, a very focused attention, say a fortnight every month. And believe it or not, the 7 people I chose, 5 of them are women. So it's you just took it away from me at this point of time. Thank you so much.
So
Nice.
I guess
Yeah,
the newer concept that it's being talked about, seat at the table for the women. I think
yeah,
more than seat at the table, it's about getting your own table itself. I think that's something
Yeah.
which probably is going to be the way forward.
yeah,
Runam talked
yeah.
about something, a growth mindset. So I would like to ask Abdul sir, is there a difference when it comes to women and men in growth mindset?
Uh, See, Dipal, absolutely. The answer to your question is absolutely yes. That's how I would summarize. But then I need to
And how is it
touch a
different?
little bit of, yeah, I need to touch a bit of what Runam had said and what Anand also had said. Okay. As Providence would have it, okay, a long story short, I have always been in women-centric environment for some reason or other. So lot of things which I've done is in consultation with women, and my admiration for women went up every year, right from my childhood. Childhood means literally childhood. Huh? Childhood means toddler, right from the toddler times. Because in fourth standard, I don't know what happened. I was studying in a convent. When I moved up to the fifth standard, I go to the class. I was me, another guy, means another boy, were the only boys in the class. The balance 58 were girls. What happened was there was a mail sent to mail means in those days post. I'm talking about 1974, 75 types. Okay, there was a mail which went home. Okay, there are no now the boys will be at this particular convent, not anymore here. We missed that mail. So the whole year I had to be with the women folk. Okay. So, and the journey continued. And believe me, I did nutrition in undergraduation. I did food science and nutrition in post graduation, which was women centric.
Yeah.
Okay. And I joined Nestle predominantly at I was in the nutrition force of when I joined. I joined as a medical delegate, so to say. Okay, and it was predominantly connecting with the gynecologist and pediatricians, and most of the pediatricians were women. And after 15, 16 years, I moved on in life. I go to Philippines. I see the entire field force there. 10% were men, 90% were women. Okay. And all my direct reports were women. And I was taken there saying that you're the master of field operations. I wore that hat and went there, landed, thinking that I'm going to spread my magic wand and try and make them dance to my tunes. Believe me when I say this. Those guys were amazing in whatever they are doing. Actually, I was awestruck. For next 4 years, I was learning many things from these my direct reports who were all women. And what motivated me was when I see them, every day there was a challenge for them. They have to travel more than 100 kilometers. They were managing $100 million business. Each one is managing $100 million. There are 5 women reporting to me. Okay, each one is managing $100 million. So imagine the worth what they bring to the table. Okay, and the twists and turns what they have their family, they have they have to manage the large teams of 50, 60 people who are again women, again women and men put together, manage expats like me who go there with a bloated ego saying that I am the best, then I realize I'm not the best anymore. Then see, these are the things which dawned on me. Oh my god, where my perspective, my lens changed when I started working with these people. Then I moved to Bangladesh. Believe me when I say this, the entire marketing team were women. And when you look at the parity, that is the gender balance of women and men, it's almost equal in Bangladesh. It is more of, don't take it in a negative sense, take it in a positive sense. It is a matriarchal society. So what happened was, I found these women extremely passionate about what they were doing. And I would only vote for what Runam had said. Okay, believe me, if I had to take an advice, if I have to go for some, what do I do next? I would go to my marketing manager who was a lady rather than go to another marketing manager who was a man, who was much more senior. He was the son of the soil, grounded, much more grounded. But then those nuances which men don't bring to the table, women do bring. I'm not telling this because I'm on this panel.
Right.
I'm not, because I need to do an advocacy here. Nestlé strongly believes in women at the table. Okay, so there is a policy. It is not because there is a policy, it is because of the credibility what they bring to the table. We make sure there is a good gender balance, consciously work towards adding value to the table by enhancing the capacities of this women workforce. So that makes a lot of difference. And when it comes to coming to the topic, see, resilience is not something which people can say, okay, today I'm resilient. No, there are certain things in life, even at this point of time, I'm not resilient. But there are certain things over 35 years I have learned to be resilient. So it is the mechanical switches in your body. So you're used to some type of pain. So next time when you get a headache, you know what to do. But you're not used to getting a pain in your hand. So you do not know what to do. So you get panic. And that is what is crisis. Today I'm traveling from Chennai to Bangalore or Bangalore to Chennai, vice versa. I think I'm going to have a very free flow traffic, nothing. Suddenly, when I go to Hosur, I find that there is a traffic jam. I'll not reach my destination. There is a crisis. I don't stop that. So how do I move around with that crisis? Okay, and I'll get used to that. That's how the resilience builds in. So I'm very glad that this topic has come, and I think Nestle, everybody knows the story. It is in the B schools, Maggie crisis. So we all weathered the Maggie crisis. So that is a long story. Probably during the course of discussion, I can bring in some nuances of how we weathered that Maggie crisis. And I would like to end this short communication here now is, see, I'm sure the senior person like Anand and my counterpart Runam knows about it. See, crisis, when you write in Chinese, there are two words. It is Wei Ji. I'll put it on chat box. Okay. It's called WEG. So what is WEG basically? WEG is nothing but WE is danger and G is opportunity. So Chinese has partly said crisis is not one word. Crisis for them is two words: danger plus opportunity. Yes, moment you see a crisis, you see a danger. Then please wake up quickly. Let us look at the opportunity. What the crisis brings to you is what crisis is all about, and that's where it will help you to build resilience. Yeah.
Oh, very well said. I'm really floored by that, thing. What about you mentioned about the Chinese, the opportunity and the danger, the confluence of both. Where when you're seeing the danger at the same time, you're able to see through the opportunity as well. So I
Absolutely.
think that brings us also to something as. Do we also work on certain frameworks? As you said, we are prepared in a certain situation, we are not prepared in a certain situation. So that calls for a lot of conditioning of the mind as well, to adapt to certain situations. So I would like to ask Anand sir, is there any set framework, or is there any framework that we could look at developing when it comes to resilience and dealing with it?
See, resilience is highly dependent, or rather, gets formed or formulated with the levels of crisis that appear. For example, let's one of the frameworks that I always keep telling my mentees is, don't look at a crisis which could possibly spell out the word failure. See, first of all, let me be very honest. Failure is a word that should be removed from the dictionary. It makes no sense. What really is failure? Failure is discovering ways that don't make things work. It's as simple as that. And what is success? Discovering ways that make things work. Now, if you look at it from this point of view, then when you discover ways that don't make things work, it's very educative. You don't resist it. You don't panic, because there are going to be moments in your life where you will discover ways that don't make things work. But in the process, you will also discover ways that will make things work. And when that happens, that gets you closer to the other word which should be also removed from the dictionary, called success. Because these are so highly competitive words. If you this particular, you look at a child growing up at home. His biggest fear is failing in class. He's not prepared, or his parents are not prepared to understand that he just might not be ready for the next class. And we are shoving him into a point where finally he will pass out as an absolute dullard. He has just ratified everything. He's just picked up, learned by heart. And this wouldn't work in the UK because they have software which actually picks up plagiarism. So my actual concept of resilience really is, if you ask me, it is connecting with reality in any which way it comes. I'll give you a very nice example. There was one of my lady entrepreneurs who was going to pitch to some major funding places. And she told me, "Sir, you must come. I want you to see my pitch. I've changed. This is a total different way I'm going to do it." So I said, "Fair enough. That should be very interesting. Let's go and pitch together." So when she got the opportunity, we were on the board, and the projector came on, the screen came on. So she said, "Look, this is what I'm searching for. But this is what could go wrong with whatever you give me." And her first 20 minutes was all about crisis. Everything that could possibly go wrong, with the business. And it was, first for me, I got cold feet, because I'm so used to watching a pitch where, profit is all the way up north, costs coming all the way down south. And the bottom line and the top line are so close to each other. There's no expense, and so much of money being made, and then
Yeah,
this
when I
she
did
comes
PNL.
up, PNL, right? I did PNL, and she comes up with an amazing set of challenges first, and with each challenge, she's also getting the investors to pitch in how they would possibly handle if this challenge came. So she got all her answers to these challenges from the entire bunch of jokers who were trying to give her money. And then she says, now that we have all the solutions, this is how we're going to be successful. So if you look at this example, which was a life-changing example for me, because I came out of 4 decades in the corporate world and I was struggling myself to become an entrepreneur. It was great because I learned that the first thing that you got to do is walk in to a bundle of things that may not happen. So you actually work out and say, okay, I'm sure this will not happen, this will not happen, this will not happen, this will not happen. And then you create probably a crisis team if you want, if you're big enough, or you just create your own small crisis team within the entire family. My 2 daughters are enough to create crises for me, so they will tell me exactly what has to be done. But ultimately, if we go head on, literally sledgehammer into crisis, even before it happens, we have all the answers in hand. So I am a very firm believer of the fact that your resilience depends entirely on the crisis. So if you don't have a crisis, there's no resilience. I keep telling them, if you want to become a blockbuster in life, you have to have blocks to burst first. You have no blocks to burst and you want to become a blockbuster. How is that possible? So that's basically my take on this.
Very well said. And that brings us to one very important topic, which I'm sure a lot of people sitting out there you would want to ask, And I would like to, check on Runam for that. In terms of financial management or financial crisis, is there any particular strategy that, especially women entrepreneurs should be looking at as a safety net for their businesses?
I think this is financial crisis, unfortunately, is a age-gendered topic to my mind, because fact is, math doesn't care about your, genitals, unfortunately. So I think financial crisis will occur in any business. It can happen to Nestlé, it can happen to any of us, right? It can happen literally to any of us. I think I'll go back to what Anand was talking about again very eloquently, right? That you need to literally, and I do this. You need to have an Excel sheet which says Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, Plan D, right? You've planned to do X amount of business, but what happens if you do X into 50%? And what happens if you do X into 20%, and so on? And I think that the difference is, and maybe this is my view, I think women sometimes lack false bravado, right? We don't, at least me as a female entrepreneur, I am a very straightforward leader. I do not have the ability to kind of put up a face which showcases that everything is well when it's not. I'm the kind of person who will go to my team and say, this is the situation, this is where we're stuck, what can each of you do? And similarly, I would go to my board and say, this is where we are. And I'm in a startup. So I've seen 4 rounds of, cuts in my very, very short career as compared to my co-panelists. I've only been working for 14, 15 years. And I've already seen like multiple rounds of tightening your belts, cost cutting and whatnot in various organizations. So I would go to the board and I would say, this is where we are. And this is my plan A, this is my plan B, this is my plan C. And look to them for advice, because often in that, hundreds of years of experience sitting out there in your advisors and your mentors and your board members, and often even your team, are solutions that you may not have even thought about. So, one, be very, very honest, firstly, with yourself about the situation that your organization is in. Number 2, leverage every talent that you have. Right? Leverage every team leader that you have. I've had people in my logistics team who've been able to save 20, 30. I didn't even know they could shave off, 20, 30% in their costs, but they managed to do it. The reason they managed to do it was because they realized that the organization is, back against the wall and everyone needs to save or create surplus wherever they can. So the smallest of teams and the largest and the most busiest of people who are there to advise you have no dearth of information, no dearth of experience to be able to help you. But they can only do that when you have the ability to tell them the situation very, very honestly. So yeah, that would be my take.
Nice. Great. I would like to ask, I think Abdul sir was saying something. I think you're on mute.
Deepa, what I would like to just add to what Runam had said, you struck a chord in me. For predominantly for 30 years of my career with Nestle, I was managing a business which was more than 500 million USD. Okay. And I took a challenge before I retired. I said I will manage a very new business which has come to Nestle. It is a startup business. So I'm no different than Runam in this business. So ultimately, I have to go back to the board members, get butchered for what I'm doing and for what I'm not doing, ask for monies, go back, plow it, show them the profitability, whatever, X, Y, Z. But then that 5 years of learning which I've had, okay, was immense, which could surpass the 30 years of learning what I had before. My last 5 years were the most satisfying. I used to drop dead when I come back, and every day was a crisis. And next day morning, when I get up, I know I'm resilient because I have to go back to meet the chairman. I have to go back to meet the my team members. I have to have, yes, little bit difference there, Runam. I have to have a brave face because it's a big organization. There are 5 other business unit heads there. One fellow is head of Maggie, another lady is head of another is heading the Nescafes, and I have taken up this challenge like I'm a he-man, saying that I will manage this business, take it from 2 million to 6 million before I retire. So I had to have that on my hand. But then the last 5 years taught me crisis, not in terms of financial thing. Yes, that was a big thing, but then every day there was, right from the raw material procurement, right from manning the people. Okay, suddenly you will have attrition, unfortunately, because your group is small within the big organization. So people like to move not from outside not outside the organization, from one unit, business unit. They would like to move to a different business unit because the pressures are very different there. This is like killing. So, see, that is like you have to do a firefighting every day there. So the crisis does not come announced as long as we have certain basic principles of to manage the crisis. One is, I attest to what Runam had said, be extremely open with your people. Go there, stand in front of your people, call them for a early morning session or an afternoon session, tell them this is happening, this is, you are my core members, now let's sort it out. Or if the team is small, be visible to the entire team, especially when you're having a video conference across your people, and tell them you are a part of this problem. Believe me, you will get more than what you asked for from the team. The angles which you have not actually seen, you have not jotted down, those comes from the bottom of the pyramid. Include them in your discussions. Otherwise, what will happen is we will get blinded, absolutely blinded.
Right.
Because I am sitting in the ivory tower, I can only my sight will take me only to certain distance. I started understanding this at a little bit later stage in life because I came from pounding the pavement. That's what I told you a while back. Okay, so somewhere when I grew up, I lost that humility. So I had a flip of that. Okay, for 6 months I really struggled. Then I realized where was I going wrong. It took me a year to understand my market shares were falling. What was I going on? I'm not hearing to the bottom of the pyramid. You have to quickly change. Include them in your board meetings. Board meeting, I really mean it. So your leadership meetings, what I personally used to do is call 2 members who are bottom of the pyramid. They may not contribute much, but they hear, they go back, they take positive, and they feel good also. See, it's one way to actually enhance and your employee. It's like employee appreciation. Okay, so they are ready to put their 2 cents on the table when the time comes. And confidence, be clear with the team and act fast. And go back to the team with your, whether it's negative, positive, don't be worried. Be very, very open, fresh, be open about what you achieved, what you're not achieved, where we need to go next. So this is how I would summarize that journey of being visible with the team, and how to manage those small crises or big crises. The what do you call, formula is the same.
Right. I'm sure the communication, adaptability, I think those kind of things really work well when it comes to this inclusivity, in terms of including your people, the bottom line, not only at the leadership roles, but somebody who's on ground, who's facing the challenges day in and day out, probably are the people who probably put more sense into the leadership also, when it comes to looking at things from not only a balcony approach, but also getting on to the details of where it's going wrong and what could be sorted. So I think that's those are nuggets which are coming out during the discussions. And this brings me to one more very important thing, that it's only necessity becomes the mother of invention. And probably when there is crisis, there is a lot of new thoughts, new ideas, innovations coming on. Anything that you could share that has been done throughout in your journeys? I think we can start with Mr. Anand there, and then move on to the.
Well, there's a very interesting question actually, because every crisis leads to a natural process of innovation, whichever way you want to look at it. If I take up what Runam said, and I was again very connected with what you says, that transparency makes such a huge difference. We had a crisis situation once in an organization that I was working for when I was posted in Delhi, and it was a financial crisis. And financial crisis is the worst crisis for any organization, because everybody thinks there's going to be no salary at the end of the month, right? And it is, and it is a very realistic nightmare. It's not a nightmare which you can take yourself away from. And we used to have the CEO along with the owner coming in on a Monday and a Wednesday, actually briefing everyone on what was happening and how the crisis was being handled. More importantly, how much they were doing to handle it. See, just briefing that there's a crisis doesn't always work. How much you work. That built up so many loyalties within the people, because they felt that this is our own company. I mean, if they can be so transparent, so pure. Now, what was the innovation that happened here? This company today is a very major organization in India, but that time it wasn't, as it was today. And it built up, for the first time ever, and I'm talking about, this is somewhere in the late 90s, for the first time ever, they brought within themselves the concept of crisis teams. So they had teams who could specialize in different areas of crisis. Every innovation always leads one to looking at something. Every crisis leads one to viewing ways to handle it in the future, and therefore it gets so creative doing that you actually automatically goes towards some sort of an innovative policy, or some sort of innovative creation, or some sort of innovative thinking process, which inevitably will keep the bottom line of the organization going up, because nothing brings people together like a crisis does. That is something, and if it's handled well. Not that there's a crisis outside in my cabin, but I'm going to tell everybody outside. That makes no sense. The whole world, everybody knows. I mean, if you're not in the boardroom, you're behind that water cooler with your coffee and probably the cigarettes that most people have. So they will be all smoking, puffing, and this is actually what's happening. And majority of the time, all of them have the wrong conclusions. So I think every crisis has its way of inevitably creating innovative, modes of better solutions for tomorrow.
Greatly said. That also brings me, to a question when you were talking, is transparency becomes one, but in many situations, it leads to a lot of accountability issues when it's crisis. And people tend to throw the ball in terms of, managing that crisis by shifting accountabilities. So how do you really handle that? I mean, so I would like to know your responses on that. So
It's a very interesting question that you've actually put. I really love this question because that is the first thing that happens, whether it's in the office or whether it's in your own home. And don't tell me it's not happening. If I have to tell something to one of my daughters, everybody gonna. She's the first thing she'll do is shift the responsibility. You tell the elder one. If I tell the elder one, you tell the younger one. If both of them can't do a damn thing, tell the wife, tell my mother. Right? And that is a typical example in any organization. The moment there's a crisis, you have one segment of people who are naturally geared to handle crises because that's the way they are. They need challenge. They need something to look forward to, something to make their day different from what it was yesterday. And then you have that segment who says, hey, this is not my job. I'm not paid to handle crisis. I'm paid to produce, right? Or I'm paid to develop the organization. And that generally is 80% of the entire group. And this is where, Runam's philosophy works very well. Transparency. Because if we get transparent, it connects people. So there is a shift whenever there's a responsibility shift. That's where even the KRAs or key result areas get very, very blurred because you really don't know. Now, what is my KRA? I'm not supposed to bring this. The actual fact is, and I've never been a very strong supporter of KRA when it comes to the point of looking from the perspective of the HR. KRAs are very good as a measure for develop one's own efficiency levels, getting to become a better version of yourself as a professional on a daily basis. It's a great rain check in terms of what is your scope of work. But I feel KRAs also limit your entire mindset into one module, one box. Now, thinking out of the box is another very commonly used 20th century dialogue, which I don't use anymore because you are never outside a box. Even this is a box and you're in it most of the time. So the fact remains is that when there's a crisis, all KRAs get blurred because now it's a question of everyone getting together and the clever, or no, I would not use the word clever. Actually, the more insightful leader would immediately marry the strength of an individual in his team to the crisis. This is where the leader comes in. Leader is not supposed to be running the crisis. He's supposed to check to see which are the people, how he can segregate it, and how each person can handle the crisis vis-a-vis their capabilities. You underrate the capability, you will increase the crisis. You zero down on each person's capabilities, share the crisis accordingly, and you're done for the day. Nothing's going to go wrong.
So I think from moving from a balanced scorecard to balancing crisis is something which is an art and management both. And I think prioritizing or decision making here will become utmost importance. So when it comes to crisis management, what do you think? Who should be taking the buck for decision making, or are there really any steps or things that should be looked at and tick marked first? When it comes to decision making.
See, Deepal, I'll share my example as a perfect experience which I've gone through, especially in the peak of the crisis. While everybody knows about Maggie crisis, okay, which is there in the books, at the same time, there was something called an infant formula crisis also, which not many people came to know because Maggie was overpowering this infant formula crisis. Okay, somewhere in one town, one consumer was not happy because they found something which was not acceptable in a milk powder. Very much agree to that because I would not like to give something which has got a dirt or something to my baby. Simple. Agreed. But then we can't sit quietly expecting things that, okay, this is the one off thing which has happened. The balance 10 lakh tins will not have that. No, we can't do that. So there's something called continuous excellence. See, I'm giving you certain jargons. Don't get into the jargons. Get into the essence of it. Okay. So basically, I'm not talking about any company. I'm talking about the right ways to do things. Okay. Probably one of those right ways. There are many. Okay. So we call it something. I don't want to talk about the prefix. Continuous excellence. There's something prefix to that. Okay. Now, what happens is we know it's a packaging problem. Now, we have to involve everybody in the not only in packaging, in procurement, in finance, in the field, in the operations, in the supply chain, as a committee, and the buck stops with the business manager. Simple. The answer to your question: the buck stops with me. My head will roll if there's any issue, but everybody will get that what do you call the bouquets when something goes right. Simple. That's how it is. There is no two ways about it. Let's accept the fact. Okay, when you're a leader, let your head is on the block. Accept it. Okay, so every day morning, 9:30 to 10, there's something called continuous excellence chart. Every facet of this improvement will be there. That is, what has the factory done on it? What has the procurement done on it? What type of investment do we need? What type of machineries we need to bring in? Okay, so how do we communicate this back to the people? How do we communicate to our consumers, that is, who are using it? How do we communicate to our customers, that are the doctors who are going to prescribe that? Okay, so these are the things which is blown on the chart, and every day there is a measurement as we how far have we made that journey. And believe me, usually with these big companies, at times it takes more than a year to turn around few things.
Yeah.
Okay. But then on this project, and when you're small, turnaround time is very less because there are not many stakeholders also there. Okay, and you can take a decision very fast. So that is the behavior we had to bring in to a large organizations. So my advice to people who are listening to us: if you're a very large organization, start learning to move fast and be agile. Okay, that is something which a big mistake with large organizations do. Okay, so coming to this continuous excellence thing, within 3 months, we brought in a packaging change which was unheard in the company. That is, it was a simple innovation. Take the flexi pack, that is the bag in a box pack, and those cigarette wrapper. When you open the cigarette like this, there is a cellophane paper on that. Okay, that very similar to that. All this bag in box had a cellophane paper coming on it. It was what I tell you will be very very basic, but then the amount of energy goes behind that to make sure the products reach the consumer safe, so that they don't find an ant or an insect later for whatever reason. We were 100% sure it's not at the factory end. It is how we keep at the stores. But we cannot say that it was a mistake of the store. We have to take the onus on us till it reaches the consumer and the baby or whoever is taking it. So the speed and involve the right people from every facet of your organization. Only then you will get that answer. And evaluate every day. We call it daily operation review. Then there's a weekly operation review. Till you finish the project, don't let yourself lose on this. So that is how I would suggest and summarize.
Great.
That's
And
very nice.
actually,
I
if you
think
don't mind, like to come in on your earlier question that you and Anand were discussing about this crisis management and accountability. And one thing that I have found that has helped me, and of course, startup world, smaller teams, not talking about the likes of Nestlé's and such, but I think very early on, before a crisis happens, I think we've had to establish a culture of, it's okay to make a mistake, number one.
Yes, yes.
And number two, very, very openly take accountability ourselves. So when I say, okay, I made this decision, clearly it wasn't the best decision. This is the amount of money we've lost or time we've lost. And, how do we repair it? When I say that in an open public forum, or if I say that in a one-on-one meeting where I take the onus of certain decisions on myself, it signals to the team that if you were to come up to me and say, we've made this mistake, I am willing to very quickly move on to the solution and not really dwell on, the punishment. See, why do people not want to take accountability? Because they are afraid of repercussions. I think Anand was talking about a child who doesn't want to fail because you're afraid of repercussions. But if you say this is not about repercussions, but it is about solutions, the quicker I know the problem, the quicker we can solve it. And constantly shifting focus to solutioning, I think, and it takes years. We were just talking about it. It sometimes takes months and weeks and years, to establish this. But if you are able to make that cultural shift within your organization, when the crisis strikes, nobody is looking at who's accountable. Everyone is looking immediately at how do we solve this. You can always go back 6 months later or 2 months later and think about what we should have done differently at the beginning to prevent a crisis and who went wrong and how that went wrong. But at that point in time, the important thing is to solution.
So, very rightly said. It's not about doing a post-mortem of the situation, but looking more from the angle of the course correction and what next could be done to salvage it out and get out of the current situation. I think very well said there. So I think we've kind of summed up and looked at a lot of different things in crisis management and being resilient. And so few last quick takeaways or quick bites that I would want from your end as to what would be your suggestions or your quick tips to people who have been in the startup journey now on this crisis management or being resilient therein.
Okay, I'll take this on. I'll take this on, or if there's anybody else who would like to say something.
No, I would like to hear it from all of you all. Because,
all of us.
I think everybody would have some take on this.
Yeah. So the first most important thing is immaterial whether you're a woman entrepreneur or a man entrepreneur. But since I've been handling mainly women entrepreneurs, so it's a little different for me. The most important thing first is to really work on a good business plan. You see, what is a business plan? What is entrepreneurship? What is starting an enterprise? It is addressing somebody's pain with a solution through a product. Period. There's nothing else to it. It's not that guy became number one as a telecom giant. I'm going to become super giant in telecommunications also. It makes no sense, right? Every product is a solution to somebody's pain, and especially if that pain has been in your life, you become a better entrepreneur because you know how to handle that. So the first important thing is get a good business plan. Number two, keep it as factual as possible. Because it's very, very simple to start. And like I said, profit margin going up north, cost going down south, and everything looks very hunky-dory. Don't fool yourself. And thirdly, the last, of course, most important is no organization. Obviously, I keep, even if a newbie startup comes, I do make the person understand eventually it is going to become an organization. It's not going to be a fly-by-night. It's not going to be some guy selling watermelons on the footpath. Even though, let me tell you, what Abdul was saying, that you should be swift in making decisions in your plan. These guys are far faster. Yesterday he was selling bananas. Now he's selling watermelons outside. Right?
Opportunity mapping, I think we should learn from them. Yeah, absolutely.
Amazing.
So, sometimes the kid on the street is a better marketer than most of people sitting in cabins.
Absolutely. So the final point is no organization is made out of brick and mortar. It's about people. If you don't know how to handle people, don't get into entrepreneurship. Because entrepreneurship is not about running organizations. Entrepreneurship is actually creating amazing worlds for people who connect with you within your organization. That is what entrepreneurship is. Because if the entrepreneur understands his progress will be the person he's employed, that person's progress, and that person's progress is going to be that person's family's progress, you have a great foundation for super entrepreneurship. That's the way I would look at it.
Great. Thank you so much. I think
And
we are getting there much better. I wish we could prolong these discussions more and more, because it's as we progress, there are so many different things that we are able to discuss.
It was
I think-
just hotting up, actually.
Yeah, so I think we have a time span at hand, and that's probably, I think we should connect and have one more round of mentor panel discussion part 2 on this.
Oh, that would be delightful. And we must have Runam and Abdul in it.
Of course.
Absolutely.
It would be
Over to
amazing.
you, Abdul. So if you had some,
see,
words to
I
say
would
on
just
this,
see, I
yes,
always put my learnings into few small words. That is, first is, let's understand you're in the business, okay? And when you're in the business, let's accept the fact life is not going to be fair. Let's accept that. That's one thing. But you should have your purpose, principles, everything sorted. Be very proactive, okay? And build relations. Okay, now if you have to be in business, we have to build relations, and the faster you build, the better it is for you. Focus on the present. Okay, there are some things which have happened, attend to that. There are some things which will happen, there is a team to attend to that, or you need to attend to that. But live the moment, focus on the present, look at what you need to be doing on that particular day, and stay extremely agile and flexible. Okay, I have learned that being 30 years in one big business of 600 million USD, and last 5 years moving from 2 million to 6 million, I have to be so agile, so flexible every day, every moment.
Yeah.
And my last 5 years were most rewarding 5 years of mine in corporate. And focus just on what you can change. You will have laundry list, but focus on what you can impact and change. And most importantly, be very grateful. Practice gratitude. Ultimately, your team is the one who has taken you there. So practice gratitude.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Runam, your words of wisdom here.
I think Anand and Abdul have said it so very well. I haven't much left to say, but I will say this: if you're running a business, crisis is inevitable. You cannot run from it. You cannot plan for every single scenario. Do your best to be planned, but when the crisis hits, and it will, you should in your head know who to leverage for what situation. And like Abdul just said, right, have enough clout, have enough relationship, have enough also guts to call on the people you need in order to solve a problem. I think that's where women sometimes hesitate, and we shouldn't. People are happy to help us.
Yes.
Yes, I think that's been a fantastic discussion, and some points that I take from this before I conclude is: accept that there is a crisis, adapt to the crisis, take accountability, quick movement in terms of agility, and I think moving from an I to we, being a team player, is something which will get us there and get through us sailing. So I think as we are on a Good Friday today, as Jesus Christ had said at one point of time, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So I think that's something that probably we all need to look at, and that's where we will sail through the crisis and have emerged better in terms of management of it all. Thank you so much. It was great having you all here this evening, and we hope to connect back with you all to have much more discussions around this. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. A brilliant conversation
Wonderful.
with you guys.
Wonderful
Yeah.
meeting all of you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.